Okay, I will do it. We have exactly one item by Kieran about manifests and processes.
Okay. Yeah, Giuseppe and I were looking at this today. Just slightly curious about the existing functionality in CF of what happens in manifests when you get rid of processes from them. So it looks like if you create a manifest with process A and process B and do CF push with it, you go and get process A, B, and then the surprise web one. If you get rid of process B from the manifest and push again, it stays there. If you get rid of A and B and replace it with C and do a push again, you'll end up with web A, B, and C. And there doesn't appear to be any way in the CLI to delete those extra processes. So it's like from the Kate side of things, you'd expect that to be like a declarative opinion of what's on the system. And I would kind of expect the processes to be deleted. Just wondering if that was the intentional thing on the CF for VMs.
I'm guessing it's intentional, but Tim might have some more context on that from the cloud controller perspective. I think a similar thing happens with environment variables, where they'll be upserted into the set of environment variables for the application, but if you remove them from the manifest, they still stick around because you've got other avenues to configure them. So you have to unset them manually if you don't need them anymore.
Yeah, with processes, you'd have to do a curl, which is a bit grim.
Yeah, I think the main issue here is that there's no super rigorous like spec of how the manifest will behave. Like, or I haven't found one that says, okay, you remove something, it will stick around. But like, for example, for roots, we've just completed a story that is for exactly the opposite behavior. Like when you take out the default root flag or something, or the no root, or when you flip the no root flag, it will, if needed, delete the existing root, which is an example of declarative behavior, where like if you take stuff out of the declaration, things go away because the reality is modified to reflect that description, that declaration. So I guess the tricky bit, more than issues with the behavior, like I'm sure there is good reasons to behave in both ways. I think the issue is, how do we figure out what the behavior is? What's the behavior that users expect, so that we can reproduce it, like we can replicate it, without just either reading the CC source code or potentially just do lots of pushes with lots of manifests and kind of reverse engineer it. But yeah, maybe Tim has some insights. Otherwise, I guess we'll have to read the code. It's probably the easiest thing.
This isn't an unreasonable request of the App Runtime Interfaces working group either, to have some clearer definitions about the intended behavior.
Right. Should I take some notes here? Maybe I should. Okay. No, that's the right spelling of behavior. Sorry, suggestion is wrong.
Can I fix that for you?
Okay, yeah, because the current stories we're working on are about just kind of augmenting the existing behavior more than anything else. So it's not like we want to change it for now, but we'll have to understand it, because we'll have to change it a few times. So yeah, I think that would be valuable. So that it's really like, I think every other endpoint that we implement is very easy to kind of implement in a way that tracks CF pretty closely, because they're very straightforward. It's like, and like documentation is kind of exhaustive, but like this is an endpoint that is actually an avenue to a whole almost Turing complete language inside CF. Like manifests can be of arbitrary complexity and then allow you to do all sorts of things. So it's that tiny, it's one endpoint with this massive surface. Which is very hard to cover, and we don't have to cover it all. But the things that we do, we should do the same way as CF. So that's a bit tricky. Okay.
Yeah.
Like another point. Yeah, go on.
Well, no, I was just going to say too, I think more specifically for the App Runtime Interfaces team, I think specifically we're asking them to be more declarative around their documentation, around like what they're, if, this is more of like, I guess, a higher level ask of them than it is the specific of this situation. It's more like, hey, is there a chance you guys can be a little bit more specific in some of your documentation around this? Because like you said, like you can't find the answer in the documentation, and that's kind of a bummer.
It could be an opportunity to just contribute back to the CF docs, because in this case we just want to do exactly what CF does. So it's not Korifi specific behavior.
Yeah, that's
I don't know if it's because it's almost its own thing. So like this could be part of the API docs, because in the end I'm hitting an endpoint and I'm sending some input, and but it has its own schema. It's YAML instead of JSON. Like it's kind of special in many ways. So there could be room for like some sort of CF manifest manual or reference where like we really go deep into it. But it would be lots of work, which is, I guess,
I mean, there's already a page in the docs that elaborates on that. I think it just doesn't explain like what happens when you remove stuff.
There's there's an app manifest attribute reference.
Yeah,
which is quite thorough already. So maybe it's a matter of just augmenting this or reading it more.
I would be willing to bet that they're not specific enough about what happens when you remove values from things that are list or set valued. I mean, maybe a good test would be, do they say anything in the environment variable section about what happens when you remove environment variables?
Environment variables, you must name, do not use, yeah, they don't. Yeah, I don't think they do. But yeah, this is good as a starting point, and even our doc, like we could also have a document that tracks that. In the similar way, we have a document that tracks the API doc, where like for each item we say this is fully supported, this is partially supported, we only support this and that. We could have a similar document for this, where we properly document what we support in the manifest. Because now I think there is a brief paragraph in the API document where we say, okay, we only support these fields, but we could be more thorough. So that's another good thing. Okay, so this is the app manifest attribute reference. And I could say we could have a document specifying similar which things are supported. Okay.
I just wonder if it was intended like that though. Like we can document what exact behavior is and help with that, but
I think
could have just happened by accident, maybe.
Yeah, but then good luck changing it now. Like if they change it in CF, like in traditional CF, like everyone's manifests will suddenly start behaving differently, and potentially we'll start deleting stuff from everyone's foundations, and it's not going to be fun. So I suspect even if it wasn't intentional, I don't think they're going to change it, just because it would be so disruptive. Unless they introduce some V2 manifests, for example, and then they tell you, okay, the scheme is actually the same, but like if you flip V1 to V2, we'll start deleting stuff. So it kind of makes it deliberate. And I hope they don't do that, because it would be a nightmare to support for us if we had to support 2 versions of the manifest. So. Okay. Next, I've put an item on this, like yet another puzzle that I've started to write about Docker lifecycle. Just a heads up that I've started doing it. Today I was pairing with Kieran, so I couldn't carry on with it. It currently mostly contains a description of what the current behavior is and some doubts I had that I've put in comments for people to potentially answer. And then what I plan to do is to describe in detail how we could implement this. And then if everyone if everyone agrees, we can create the stories. I think we have a pretty straightforward path towards support. And what's good about Korifi is that basically container images for us are kind of this lingua franca. Like every way it doesn't matter how we build the app, but they all boil down to the same artifact type, which means from one point onwards, there's no changes to make. Like in CF, the droplets derived from build pack apps are different from container images, so they need to treat them separately all the way down to execution. But for us, that's not the case. Once you get to a container image, what happens from that point onwards is shared, because both parts in the end up building container images. And they're slightly different container images. Like there's some details that vary, because the build pack container images have this like multi-process thing where like they have some metadata attached about all these different types of processes that can be run, while usually Docker images only have one process. So we'll have to add some conditionality in, or at least like support both cases in. But other than that, everything else should be relatively straightforward. And the generic interfaces we have in place, so the build workloads we won't need to use for Docker images because they're already built. And the app workload already takes an image as an input, so that doesn't have to change, which is good news. So I'm confident that we can do this relatively easily, which is why I picked it up in the first place. I think it's a change that has a good impact, because it allows you to push your Docker apps via the same tools you use for the other apps. And it should be relatively straightforward to implement. Although this will come after the other 2 epics, so I don't know when we start. Oh, and another thing, I think we've added a new option to the distribution proposal, which is about basically porting everything to Helm and basically ditching customize completely. So now the proposal has these 2 options, and people can kind of express a preference, and hopefully we can all agree on one of the 2, and then we can proceed. I think we had the original deadline set to maybe today or something, but given there have been so many changes, maybe we could wait another week or 2 and see what people think. Let's see if I can find the proposal so that I can link it in the document. Yeah,
so we've just done it.
Beautiful, even better, nice. So yeah, proposals. I'm done. So do we want to wait for Tim, or if there is nothing else, we can also call it, unless Tim had anything urgent to talk about, which I don't think so.
Didn't sound like he did.
In that case, we can just call the meeting if everyone is happy.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, we just
Yep.
ask him on Slack about the manifest question. See if he has thoughts.
Yeah, why not?
Cool.
Okay. Thanks everyone, I guess. See you at the next one.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks everyone.
Bye.
Bye.